Watching this NBA offseason play out so far, it's been crazy to see the amount of money being thrown out there. It's like the league just can't help themselves. Scrubs are getting 10 plus million a year. Role players are getting 20 million a year. Borderline stars, 30 million a year. Superstars, 40 million a year. Against a salary cap that's about $99 million. You're going to get to a point someday where those chickens are going to come home to roost because nobody's going to be under the salary cap. Nobody will ever be able to stay under the salary cap. Even if the amount of the salary cap increases by 15-20% over the next 3 or 4 years, nobody's going to be able to stay under the cap. It's crazy. But with all that being said, who should really be bothered and upset by this are NFL players. You're looking at the money being given out, and it's all guaranteed. Every single dollar of it is guaranteed. So if a guy gets $100 million over 4 years, they are getting $100 million over 4 years. Whereas with an NFL contract, it's about the guaranteed money built within the entire value of the deal. And oftentimes, quite a bit of that money in the annual value of the contract and the overall value of the contract is not guaranteed money. So you're giving owners the ability to get out from these deals, indicating that the NFL players have absolutely no leverage at all in what is by far the most popular sport in North America. By far. And you look at the average value of the deals for the superstars in the NFL and the fact that most of the superstars of the NFL are getting paid less per year on an annual basis in terms of guaranteed money and overall money than NBA role players. Like if you took J.J. Redick's 1 year, $23 million contract and imported it to the NFL, he's easily one of the highest paid players in the entire damn league. And this is a two guard who basically is there as a floor spacer to hit some threes, and that's it. You're not building a team around him. But he's making more money per year than, oh my goodness. And then the average value of the deals for NFL superstars is much less than Major League Baseball stars. I mean, you got a lot of guys now, $25, $30 million a year, the superstars, and sometimes not even superstars, when these NFL players aren't coming close to sniff that. And just to paint the picture of just how crazy this is and how angry NFL players should be, looking at some NBA contracts that have been recently signed over the past year or so. Otto Porter, no better than the third option for the Washington Wizards. Otto Porter for a Washington Wizards team who at best is the third or fourth best team in the weak-ass Eastern Conference, makes more money per year than Odell Beckham Jr., Antonio Brown, and Julio Jones. Does anybody see something wrong with this picture from the perspective of Odell Beckham Jr., Antonio Brown, and Julio Jones? And Beckham and Brown have just gotten big deals. And surely Julio's probably going to get another one soon. And Otto Porter makes more than all of them. Drew Holiday just got big money from the Pelicans. He makes more per year than Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Chandler Parsons, Harrison Barnes, J.J. Redick all make more per year, and in particular with Chandler Parsons and Harrison Barnes, because those were multi-year deals, they make more money per year as role players than J.J. Watt, Von Miller, Richard Sherman, who are superstars, who are arguably the best in the NFL at their respective positions and what they do. So in a much, much more popular game, a more popular league, with more money at stake, more money in play by far, much larger television audience, a playoffs that gets much higher ratings than the NBA, a Super Bowl, a championship game that clearly gets vastly superior numbers to the NBA Finals. J.J. Watt makes less money than Chandler Parsons. Von Miller makes less money than Harrison Barnes. Richard Sherman makes less money than either one of those guys, and you throw in J.J. Redick too. You want to really go there, they make less money per year on an annual basis than Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to make, who already has surpassed his father, a Hall of Fame NBA player, Tim Hardaway. I got skills. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s total earnings in his career, even at this point in time, because again, the NBA contract is 100% guaranteed once it's signed, is almost double what his Hall of Fame dad made. That's crazy. Then you look at baseball. Bryce Harper is about to get here very soon upwards of $40 million a year. You might potentially, if teams want to really bid, get up to $45 million a year. In the grand scheme of things, baseball isn't shit compared to popularity to the NBA, let alone the NFL. But then people in baseball are getting paid. Bryce Harper could end up getting $450 million over 10 fucking years. Not to mention other young players, future or big stars, young stars like Chris Bryant, Manny Machado. Imagine the contracts they're going to get. And at some point in time, you're going to get a $500 million man in baseball. It's going to happen. And sooner rather than later. And all Bryce Harper's contract is going to do is similar to what Alex Rodriguez's first contract, that massive 10-year, $252 million deal did with the Texas Rangers. It just totally escalates the market and changes the market. And contracts are going to follow suit. And you look at the NBA. James Harden just got a $228 million extension. How many NFL players are ever going to earn that money in terms of contracts and guaranteed money in their entire career? And for James Harden, that's just over a 4 or 5 year period. He's getting $228 million. How many NFL players are ever going to do that? And at least I can say with James Harden, he's a superstar. He's a marquee franchise player in the NBA. But this is just one extended period of time. You're talking about career earnings for him in terms of NBA contracts going to be well over $500 million. $500 million. $500 million. Without having to take nearly the physical risks that NFL players do. Not having to deal potentially with long-term effects of CTE, concussions, all the broken bones and joint issues, arthritis, everything else that comes along with being an NFL player. James Harden can sit there and travel his ass off for 82 games a year and end up making over $500 million in contracts by the time his career is over. Well, how did those sports get there? Well, you look at Major League Baseball. They got there via the strike in '94. The players' union dug in their heels. They stood their ground. Like it or not, they exercised their leverage to not play. Dared the league to play chicken, and they did. And in the short term, both sides lost because the strike of '94 ultimately wiped out the rest of the '94 season, including that year's World Series. Think about that. Think about that. They were willing to forego a World Series to get where they wanted. And all the other labor strife over the years where the players' union had dug in their heels. Ultimately, the union stood their ground. The players stood their ground and forced the owner's hand and forced the owners to capitulate, forced the owners to cave in. And now you've gotten into the situation where not even megastars in baseball can get paid $25 million or more a year. And again, all guaranteed money. The NBA got here where the owners multiple times tried to utilize lockouts to exercise their leverage. And ultimately, the players' union for the NBA stood their ground. We didn't lose seasons, but there were games lost. There were seasons affected. And in that 99 lockout, we lost an all-star game as a result of it. But ultimately, the union stood their ground. The players were united. They fought for common goals. And now you've gotten to the point where you're at an unsustainable level where everybody is getting paid mega millions in the NBA. And again, all guaranteed. Like you want to look at Chris Bosh, the perfect example of if he was an NFL player, a team would have had all of his guaranteed money in a 5-year deal in the first 2 to 3 years, and after that would have been able to cut him with just a minimal cap hit, and Chris Bosh is fucked. But in the NBA, even with the blood clots, potentially meaning he might never play in the NBA again, and the Miami Heat have waived him, the simple fact of the matter is his contract was guaranteed, so he gets 100% of that money regardless of anything else that happens. Because if they won't medically clear him, he doesn't have to retire. He could collect the rest of that money. I think of Prince Fielder as another example. That big, huge contract that looks so bad in the retrospect of history, the fact is, though, Prince Fielder's going to see every dime of it because the doctors wouldn't clear him to play. So he didn't have to retire. The doctors weren't going to let him play, and he's getting paid. You know, you think about the whole Bobby Bonilla Day that everybody talks about, where every year Bonilla gets a little over $1 million for 30-plus years because of the stupidity of the Mets ownership at the time, wanting to invest more money in a Bertie Madoff Ponzi scheme. The point is that Bobby Bonilla, over the next 25, 30 years still, is making more money than a lot of mediocre NFL players will make in their active careers. So yes, NFL players should be pissed. They should be wondering what the hell is going on. Why are MLB players getting so much more? Why are they getting all their contracts guaranteed money? Why is the NBA paying role players and scrubs more money than NFL superstars. There is something seriously fundamentally wrong with this picture, but ultimately NFL players only have themselves to blame. Stop bitching about it and do something about it. Instead of sitting there and buying that extra house, that fucking fancy car, sitting there knocking up another woman, Antonio Cromartie and so many others, that you don't fucking need and you don't need to, don't give your money to friends and family. Save up now. Put that money away. Be as frugal as possible. Live within your means. Think about your long-term future. You only have a certain amount of earning power, a certain amount of time to be able to make this big money. So why would you want to blow through it when you just don't need to? It's just irresponsible and reckless. What you should be doing now is saving up and coming together and realizing you've got to fight. That last lockout in 2011, you really didn't get shit out of it. What's really came out of that was that rookies got less in terms of guaranteed money, all because we wanted to pay the veterans more. The veterans should get more with the rookies. And I have absolutely no problem with that. I think it's good that every year we don't have to talk about rookies that got drafted being holdouts and not being in camp for days, weeks, potentially months. I think that's a good thing for the development of those young players. It's a good thing for the teams that drafted them. I think it's a good thing for the league where the stars get paid, the veterans, the established players do get paid more than the rookies. But the problem is those veteran contracts did not increase nearly to the level that they should have because the NFL players caved. You had this opportunity 6 years ago to make this shit right, and you just didn't. And you could blame your union leadership, and obviously your union leadership doesn't know what the fuck they're doing because they weren't able to convince you to dig your heels in part because, again, guys had the baby mamas that they had to give money to. They had their friends and family, the leeches that they had to give money to. They had to sit there and buy those extra houses and buy those extra cars and dig themselves into such a financial hole that they were living literally as mega millionaires, paycheck to fucking paycheck. These NFL players have to band together because the only way you're going to get what you should get, and I don't care if you say, well, the rosters are 53 plus practice squads compared to the Major League Baseball rosters 25, the NBA it's 15, so there's less money to go around in theory. You can make that argument to a certain degree if you want to sit there and talk about, well, 162-game MLB regular season, 82-game NBA season, 16-game NFL season, but again, the money is much bigger in the NFL, not to mention the fact that these guys have shorter shelf lives because of the line of work that they're in, because of the sport that they play, because of the physical toll that playing the game takes on their body. So to sit there and allow the owners to make huge amounts of money and the players to not get a bigger portion of the pie, there is nobody to blame but the players and their union leadership. You guys, in a few years, you've got a big decision to make. Are you going to dig in your heels? Are you going to fight for what you deserve? Or are you going to sit there and get some concessions and sign it because you need that next fucking paycheck? And in the meantime, for all these NFL players, if they go on social media and bitch and moan about how much these other players and other sports are getting, then maybe it's a moment, a learning experience to sit there and take a look and say, what's wrong with this picture? Why do they get so much more for playing lesser sports in terms of popularity here in this country? It's an important question to ask. But again, these other leagues, Major League Baseball, the NBA notably in recent years, these players' unions dug in their heels. They fought, they scratched, they clawed, they sacrificed to get to where they wanted to. And they still didn't get everything they wanted, clearly, but they got a whole lot fucking more than the NFL players ever have. How ridiculous is it that Drew Holiday makes more per year than Aaron Rodgers? Otto Porter makes more money per year than Odell Beckham Jr. And I'm not just saying, as a slight alone against Otto Porter and Drew Holiday. If somebody's stupid enough to pay you the money, then you got to take it. Because they've determined in the marketplace that that's what you're worth. And that's great. But Odell Beckham Jr., people know who the fuck he is. Who the hell is ever going to really know truly who the hell Otto Porter is? Aaron Rodgers is arguably the best quarterback in the game today. Drew Holiday is just another point guard in the NBA. J.J. Watt has had his face plastered all over the place. All over the place the past few years by the NFL. And yet, he makes a pittance compared to Chandler Parsons and Harrison Barnes. The NFL players have themselves to blame. It shouldn't be like this, but it is. And until they band together and really fight the good fight, nothing's going to change. They have to fight this because it's just fundamentally fucked up. It is.